It's so close, I can taste it. But the question is when? When will we see $40 silver? I want to know what you think down in the comment section down below. But in the meantime, let's discuss the current silver market as it stands right now. Let's explore! And who knows, by the time you see this video, we may already be at $40 silver. I don't think that's going to happen. As I record this video, we're exactly $1.01 away from that. But it wasn't terribly long ago when you heard me say before that it's so close I can taste it. And that is when we got to $39.70 per ounce. That was the top of the market, more than a 14-year high. We very well could revisit that again. But remember, what moves the day-to-day markets in terms of not only the stock market, the dollar index, pretty much everything and anything? Well, a lot of times it is because of emotions. Emotions drive the markets. There's no question about that. And emotion is heavy-handed these days, that's for sure, for a lot of different reasons. Some of it is justified, but there's other angles of the stock market that are overreactions. Not only the stock market, but the precious metals markets as well. And it all came down to what moved the markets yesterday. And that is what one Federal Reserve governor said that should happen with the interest rates. He says, hey, we should lower interest rates at this meeting coming up on July the 30th for the FOMC to lower interest rates by 1/4 point. But the thing is that with that kind of a talk, that's one out of, I think, 12 governors of the Federal Reserve, and they have to vote on it. And Jerome Powell was just one vote, by the way, in this. Nonetheless, he's a very powerful member and can sway opinion one way or the other. But right now, the possibilities and the chances of that happening, according to a survey over at the Fed Watch tool, is that 97.4% believe that the rates will remain unchanged, no movement at all. So is this just a bunch of hype, and will we see a correction in the markets? It is quite possible. That is something we should consider. But anyways, if there is a correction in the markets, well, that might be a good time to pick up some silver if your budget allows. Summit Metals is the channel sponsor, and this is one area where I say, hey, buy only if your budget allows, and if the dip is right for you. There's some that think we're going to see it fall even more. So you have to decide when or when not to buy silver, because it's just as important when not to buy silver as when to buy it. But nonetheless, it's always good to keep in mind to have a good dealer that you can trust. And Summit Metals have proven themselves with some of the best customer service out there. SummitMetals.com. They also have a special going on. I'm going to post a link to that special code that you enter in by July 31st. And who knows where silver is going to be by then. But nonetheless, this is the market we live in now, where silver is right at $39. And I tell you, as I'm watching these overnight markets, as I record this video, it's intriguing to me to see that there is a fight happening in the Asian markets for silver right now. And that fight is centered around it staying above that $39 realm. Yesterday it got up to $39.13 at the high for the actual market spot price. The futures market is higher, but some of that it has narrowed a bit. Nonetheless, August 1st is coming, and that's when the tariffs are going to hit in, and more than likely, probably the Fed is going to wait it out. Unless we're shocked and surprised, and that really would be a shock, and then you would see the metals markets move dramatically. And that is a possibility. I just don't see it happening. And I think once we realize, and certainly once we see these markets see that Fed meeting happen at the 30th of July, then more than likely it is going to be disappointing for some of those that are overly bullish on the metal. Now, I am bullish on silver. In fact, all of my predictions that I've made, year-end predictions for silver since 2020, have been bullish predictions. I've only been right 3 times, 2 this year with the price of silver, and 1 in a previous year. And I was wrong on the revised. But nonetheless, I'm nervous about making another prediction. $40 is a very, very strong psychological number for silver. And you think about that number, what it means, and where the last time we got to that number. It really is gives you a little sense of how far we've come with silver, but also how far we need to go in order to reach that high of $50, which is it's the strongest psychological number in terms of nominal dollars. But when adjusted for inflation, silver still has quite a ways to go to hit that top number, to get to the record. Now, what you're looking at here is over $100 worth of silver eagles. And the silver eagle is the most popular silver bullion. It's the most popular bullion coin on the planet. And, it's one of those things where we've seen premiums on these things climb back when silver's price was much lower to almost $50 an ounce. That's right. And back in 2021, 2022, when the premiums were high, for silver eagles especially, it was hard to find these things in the low 40s. And so in some ways, that's a sense and idea of what the market is like. Nowadays, the premiums are much lower, but you're still going to pay a premium for silver eagles, but it's about the same as it was back then. And so when it all evens out, if you're a buyer, well, the market's about the same. If you're a seller, the market is extremely different, because as a seller, you could sell one of these silver eagles and get $10, $15 above spot for it. And they were charging, anywhere between $18, $20 back then. It's crazy. Somewhere thereabouts. It's an average. It's an estimate. My numbers aren't exact, but nonetheless, it's fascinating to see how the markets react and what's moving them. And I think what's moving them right now is essentially the psychology of what one board of governors said, and of course the dollar index reacts. But there's another underlying reason, and I talked about in yesterday's video as well too, and that is a real silver squeeze that's happening in terms of the amount of silver that's backing up the paper markets, the derivative markets. That is a real problem, folks. And I think, in a sense, that's going to have a more powerful move on the actual spot price than any kind of squeeze that happens on the other end, which is what happened back in 2021. But imagine if people bought a bunch of silver now on the retail side, tubes of silver eagles, what that would do to the market. I think if you squeeze it from both ends, it would be an even greater impact, and premiums would probably soar like crazy. In other words, it might not be a good idea to buy a whole lot of silver right now as the prices go up, and to cause those premiums to increase too, because we're hurting ourselves. We'd be shooting ourselves in the foot. But nonetheless, it's always a good idea to buy a little bit of silver at a time if you can, or if you feel comfortable buying more silver at a time, depending on what your level of understanding of the markets are. And believe you me, folks, this is a number, $39. I'm looking at it right now, where we could see it. I mean, it is quite possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we could see it pull back $2 very easily if we get to the point now where the market is like just sitting here, and the Federal Reserve meeting, and whatever they say from that Federal Reserve meeting, saying that it's going to be quite a while before they lower interest rates. I could see it falling in the course of a couple of days, $2 an ounce, getting it down to $37 an ounce. And now remember, $37 an ounce is not a bad number for silver, because remember, the more that it goes up and it stays up, the higher the floor. There's a stronger resistance. And that is something that we need to celebrate even more than it topping $39 an ounce, and us salivating, pun intended, at the possibility of $40 silver. I think the more we can see that the silver stayed above 38, the better. The more that we can see 37, 36, and so on. Now remember, some of the real bullish folks out there have been saying that once we saw $36 silver, there was no stopping it on its path up to $40 and $50. But there's been enough resistance now in the market that it's not happened. Some of that could have been the bullion banks as well too. Feeling empowered by a new rule change that I talked about in a prior video, that they can afford to continue to short and not be as concerned about losing some money on those shorts. But the more stress and strain that is on them, I think the more likelihood that we're going to continue to see the price just press on a little bit at a time. And even though a move like what we saw yesterday, and who knows what move we're going to see today, in fact, it could be in negative territory today, but it's been a pretty stable climb upwards. That's normal. That's good. We want that. We want a normal, steady climb to the upside. We don't want it to move fast like it did in 2011, where it was like when we were here, it was like 6-8 weeks and it got to $50 an ounce. That's not what we want. We want something that's more liquid and more fluid with the markets, with the market that's going to have some sort of bottom to it, some sort of meat behind it. Because right now, we're seeing some of that meat start to form. There's some real substance to this price increase right now. And when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at what the lowest possible chance is going to be for silver to go if there's a consolidation of price, pullback, if you will. And it seems like every time it pulls back, it doesn't go down to the previous level of support. It stops short of that, and then it climbs up. There are very few cases we've seen in the last few weeks where that's happened, which is why right now we've been pretty set in our ways, thinking $38 has been $38 long enough. Hey, $39, it's not terribly surprising to some of us to see. And that's how our mind works. The silver stackers, physical silver stackers are ahead, and we can see what's happening. But there is a battle that will go on, and it's happening right now in the Asian markets. And who knows what we're going to see when the markets open up and when you see this video published. So it'll be very interesting. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. And again, I asked the question, when do you think we'll see $40 silver? Post it in the comment section down below. I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.